Welcome to the Growth Minded Accountant podcast, where our experts will share best practices on running your firm in the digital age. This podcast is brought to you by CountingWorks Pro. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Growth Minded Accountant podcast. I'm your host, Reams II, joined today by Rebekah Barton, our Chief Visibility Officer here at CountingWorks Pro. We're here to talk about something that can transform your tax practice and boost your revenue, and it's upselling tax advisory service. So it's all the rage right now. There's a lot of different bloggers and influencers that are all talking about, hey, tax prep is kind of dying. You need to start transitioning. There's all these opportunities for changing a lot of your client base to tax advisory. So today, most of those influencers are just talking about what tax advisory is. They're not really telling you or teaching you how to go step by step to actually create a list, to create a campaign. How can you upsell current clients, and how can you attract new prospects to your tax advisory services? So today's podcast, we're going to talk about 5 key steps that you as a tax professional can take to turn these once-a-year tax prep clients into year-round tax planning clients, offering ongoing value while growing your bottom line. So Rebekah, welcome. I'm excited to dig into this topic with you. Just say hello as we get started.
Hey, everybody. I'm excited too. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So we said there's going to be 5 steps, and we're going to go through them. Today's podcast hopefully won't be as long as normal. Hopefully you can run through this, but we want to start by, I think the basics are starting by establishing a package pricing schedule. Now, some people are still stuck on the hourly. Package pricing does a lot of things to really take the friction out of the buying process. It takes the uncertainty. It's more transparent. And think of it as, when you sign up to hire an attorney and you're paying $850 an hour, you're having the shortest conversations possible. You're just trying to get off the phone, but you may not be getting the most for your service, right? So when you're defining what your tax advisory package looks like, there's a lot of different techniques and ways to do this. So we're going to give some suggestions here. I'm going to go over the individual side first and then get into kind of some ideas for business tax planning. I think those are a little bit different. They can be structured differently and priced differently. So Rebekah, we usually recommend doing 3 different pricing tiers. And is there some psychology behind this? Like, what is it that drives or is the best, practice to do 3 when trying to sell something like tax advisory services?
Yeah, so there is a little bit of psychology to it. Also, it's a manageable number, right? Like if you have 5, 6, 7 different packages, people get overwhelmed. They don't know which one to choose. They're confused. 3 is a nice number. The rule of 3 is used in design and journalism a lot when you're doing images or doing graphics work. And I think there's almost kind of a pricing rule of 3 too, that having 3 clear packages that are very clearly delineated what services are offered, it makes people more likely to buy because they can clearly see which package works for them, right? They're not befuddled by the fact that you have 10 different options and they just really don't know what one to choose. And then they almost feel swindled because they don't know what to pick and they just get so lost that they go with another person. So 3 is a nice even number that allows you to offer variety while not overwhelming potential clients, I guess, to kind of just simplify it.
Yeah, and it kind of goes, here on the West Coast, we have In-N-Out Burger, and it's one of the most successful franchise restaurants in the country. And the reason it is simplicity. You go in, it's a very simple menu. You're not sitting there for hours trying to figure out what you want to order and how to do it. And it's made them, or at least for their side, their conversions, simplicity, the repeat business, it makes it much easier for the consumer to decide what to do. So we're going to suggest 3 different types of plans here. Basically, you can have what we call the basic tax planning package. And with new AI agents, tools like we have at CountingWorks Pro, you can actually do one-off personalized tax plans. So perhaps you have some gig earners that aren't in the super high complexity, but they do have multiple jobs. There's a lot of different strategies that they could implement to save on their taxes that they'd be willing to spend $800, $1,500 for a one-time fee. If you use that kind of service and that kind of package, and you use an AI agent like ours, basically what we do is we create an outbound email campaign, goes out to your clients that you've identified in this category. It would include some upsell reasons why you should do this. They then hit a button to say purchase now, which takes them through a basic intake form. We're collecting some data from that, combine that with their tax return data if you have it, and we can create really highly personalized tax plans. So that's one level of approach. The other one is going into what I'm going to call more advanced tax planning packages. That can be anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 per quarter. Ideal for high income earners such as lawyers, doctors, real estate investors, tech employees with more complex financial needs. And then you have what I'll call, you start getting into the business tax planning. So, ongoing business tax planning can vary because there's different types of business. So an entrepreneur, for example, might have one entity versus 5 or 6 or 10 or more, right? So there's a lot of different ways to go with the business tax plan. And we have 3 different ways. We would suggest a basic business tax planning package for small businesses or startups. It can range from $1,500 to $5,000 annually. And it can include everything from things like quarterly tax estimates, basic tax strategy review, looking at entity structure, deductions, retirement plan guidance. So the solo 401ks, SEP IRAs, basic audit support, ongoing tax advice as needed. So it's kind of like, hey, this is a little window. These are the things that I'm going to do in the basic plan. Again, $1,500 to $5,000 annually. It's not super time consuming on your side. If you're using a lot of the digital intake forms and different processes to save you time, they could be great for a lot of your small business owners that are just starting out, right? So then we're going to go into the next level, which I would call the mid-level business tax planning. This is for growing businesses. I would say price range $5,000 to $12,000 annually for this. It includes everything from basic package, entity restructuring advice, maximizing deductions, going over R&D tax credits, home office, depreciation, advanced retirement and benefit planning for employees, assistant with cash flow projections and tax savings. Definitely go over tax credits for hiring, energy savings, things like that. And this could include now where you're doing monthly or bi-monthly check-ins. So you're providing a little more time. Again, you're controlling the windows, but you're being more transparent than you are on if someone's just doing hourly work, right? And then the next one would be what I call the advanced business tax advisory. This is for established business clients or really high income clients. This could be 12,000, to 50,000 plus annually. It includes everything I just suggested in the mid-level package, but then I would start getting into, much more advanced things. So this could be tax harvesting. You could start doing year-round tax harvesting. AI tools now enable you to connect your clients' investment accounts and actually be able to suggest weekly or real time, if a big move happens in the stock and up or down, there's ways that you can now analyze that. Tax impact analysis for business decisions. What if we expand? What if we acquire other businesses? You can start going over qualified small business stock and exit planning strategies. I think these are huge issues that a lot of businesses, they go to sell and they've done no planning and it's like, well, we can't do much, right? So I think this is why this type of service is really important. You could add estate planning and wealth transfer strategies here, multi-state tax planning and compliance. Obviously, a lot of people now are going remote, they're relocating, they have different home bases for their state taxes. So definitely things to start looking at. In-depth quarterly reviews with adjustments to your strategy, and then year-round proactive advisory with forecasting and detailed tax planning. I think this package for the high revenue business owners, personally, I would just focus on this. I think it is more lucrative. You can work with fewer clients and have a bigger effect. And they're also more likely to feel comfortable about paying for this type of services. So again, your advisory services are complex. You're doing tax mitigation strategies, succession planning, proactive year-round advisor. So I think it's a big deal. Not everybody is going to fit in your bucket. So if you need to do custom pricing, what does that mean? Someone might have international operations, complex business structures. So consider, this is the best way to say it. You have a package that is a starting point for a conversation. You can put it in a proposal, and then you can start saying, okay, where do we need to add on and what does that look like? So there's a couple different things too. The AICPA has been talking a lot about what a retainer is versus actually advisor, what you're allowed to do. So definitely look at the latest rules and regs on that. But also start thinking about these add-on services that you can throw in here. So What are they? They could be audit support, tax dispute resolution, personal tax planning for the business owner. So you're already doing the business entity. Now you can evolve that too. If you think about it, all the business owners now could be your individual tax clients as well. So it really, really ties in and works very well. So I think the basics here are by having a clear pricing strategy, your clients can see the value in upgrading to these ongoing advisory services, right? So it's easier for me, I think, to sell. Again, less friction. And that's the whole thing. If you convert more people, can you articulate what the value add? Can someone look at it, just in a real quick email and understand what I'm getting? I think that is game changer. So those are kind of the things. We've done other podcasts. We've done this in huge detail. We've done webinars on pricing and packaging and selling through packaging. So please reference that. I ran through that just to get the basics for it. So the big part, I think, is now, however you're selling it, if you can't identify who to upsell or who to target, that's going to be your big blocker, right? And a lot of firms, so we just had a client who couldn't get past uploading their database into our platform, right? And you sit there and go, how are you going to be successful if you're not marketing to your current client base? I mean, they're going to give you the most referrals. They're going to be the easiest people to upsell. You can grow or double your business just by using this type of strategy alone. Forget about attracting new clients, but you have to be proactive. They're just not going to come. It's not like you build it and they come. You need to communicate your services. You have to let them know about it. So let's talk about how to identify current clients. And let's start there, because then you can segment your database and you can start doing very personalized outgoing messaging to these. So Rebekah, I'm bringing you back into this conversation. I want to start with occupation-based segmentation. So I listed, I think, 5 different ones. If you can go through them, and then I want you to just kind of talk about what would be some things that you might put in copy-wise or image-wise in those outbound upsells. One, A, you need to identify them in your client database, so you need to tag them. But B, how would you then start communicating these? So let's start with the occupation base.
Sure. So as with anything, personalization is king. We talk a lot about that on this podcast. The more personal you are, the more likely people are to identify with you and ultimately to stay with you or to choose you in the long run. So here we're kind of talking about 5 different segments of people who might be really good candidates for tax planning services. So we've got high-income professionals. So that's going to be your doctors, your lawyers, your CEOs of small to mid-sized companies, consultants, people who do, gig economy work full-time, that type of thing. Those are great people who often have really complex tax situations because they've got their hands in a lot of different buckets, right? Maybe they have a lot of 1099s. Maybe they're self-employed. Maybe they need assistance paying, Social Security taxes. They're confused. They don't understand these things. So you can really come in and help them out, help them save money. They might also have investments. They might have different things like that that are playing into their financial situation. So the first thing you're going to want to do is think about their lifestyle, right? And then use imagery, use words that connect with that. So if you are working with, people who are doing gig economy work, I think it's really easy to identify things that they may be struggling with. Like, are you dealing with multiple clients? Are you having problems, figuring out how to bill, how to tax, how to organize all of these different documents you have from, 20, 30 different clients a month? That to me would be something that gig people and entrepreneurs would definitely hone in on, consultants, because managing multiple clients can be really challenging and understanding how to pay taxes on all of those. So that's just one example of a campaign you could send out for people in that kind of high income professional category. Small business owners obviously deal with all sorts of things. With small business owners, which is our next category, identifying things like, are you too busy to handle your taxes? Small business owners often do not have any time in the day to deal with things like finance. So taking that off of their plate can be huge. So focusing on that aspect of things can be really, really good for convincing them that they need your services, that you're going to provide value to them because you're doing something that they truly don't have enough hours in the day or in the week to properly oversee. Real estate investors are our next bucket here. And people who deal with a lot of real estate obviously have a lot of tax considerations. Focusing on things like depreciation, capital gains management, that can be really big in this area. Those are kind of buzzwords that are going to attract those people. So if you're using those kinds of things, providing them with strategies for how to handle that, showing them that they no longer have to worry about understanding kind of these complex areas of taxation on their own. That can be a really good focus. Next, we have freelancers and solopreneurs, which we kind of went over earlier with the consultants. But again, a lot of these people are dealing with things like multiple clients. They're struggling to figure out how to manage all these different 1099s they have coming in at tax time. That sort of thing can be really good. So also with freelancers, sometimes we get into things like DoorDash, Uber, different things like that that people are working for where they might have some complex taxation. So even using those brand names can be helpful. Like, are you an Uber driver looking for tax help? Things like that can attract attention if you're targeting a highly specific subset of your client list. Then finally, we're going to talk about tech industry employees for a minute. A lot of these people have stock options, things like that. They need help understanding how that plays into their financial situation, to their tax situation every year. So focusing on stocks, focusing on RSUs, that sort of thing can be really, really important when trying to appeal to tech workers. And again, we kind of are flying through this today just to give you the basics, but we do have more in-depth podcast webinars about a lot of these topics. So we're just breaking it down for you today kind of quickly.
Yeah, and then we're going to continue with identifying. So occupation is obvious to me. It's more common sense. The next one is common sense as well. Financial situation-based segmentation. I basically have three of them here: high net worth individuals, retirees or near retirees. With the aging boomer market right now, especially, crazy. What is it? 75% of CPAs are near retirement age. This area is obviously a big deal for a lot of people in the United States. The investors, clients with substantial investment portfolios. This is where, again, the tax harvesting. There was a study, I think it was by MIT or Harvard. I'm not sure. I think it's MIT, but basically they said people that actively tax harvest year round will get a 1% alpha over people that do not. And 1% doesn't sound like that much, but with the time value of money, it is a big deal. So clients with significant assets, if you did start out offering tax harvesting as a year-round service, allowing AI to do most of the work, you just kind of human in the loop, watch it, I think is another very good target audience. Something you may not think about or you kind of overlook, and it's obvious when we say it, is life event-based segmentation. So recent home buyers or sellers, especially today, a lot of people are holding their homes longer. The value of these homes is much higher. They're relocating if they're over certain ages. There's certain property tax ramifications when they move. Sometimes you can take your basis with you depending on where you live. So there's a lot of areas that you can look at there. New parents. I think the trend, and people are getting more wary of, hey, Social Security might not be around. I need to start saving for my children when they're born. 529 plans, obviously, for college education savings, but even showing them how to set up, Roth IRAs or whatever for their children, and the time value of money and what that means, that more than backfills any loss in if Social Security isn't around. Divorces, it gets very complex. It's filing status. There's a lot of different things you need to discuss through that. So I would say life event divorcees is another good option. So what's interesting here is after you go through the life event, if you just look at these three segments and focus on them, you can probably identify really good target audiences in your current client database. And then now comes the fun stuff. So this is where Rebekah gets to jump in. So once you target your clients, now you have to move to outreach phase. A lot of accountants just don't have the time to do this, don't have the expertise to do this. We have created very, I would say, ad agency level campaigns that include white papers, series of emails, appointment calls to action things. So we're going to talk about that here and kind of how to do an upsell campaign. So first of all, you've segmented your client. Now you have a bunch of lists. I would say let's create a series of emails based on the pain points, the things, the concerns, the benefits, the dreams, the financial outcomes that each group might want to have. So we would suggest a series of emails spread out over a period of time, minimum of 3. And in these, you're trying to educate versus just going hardcore sell, sell, sell. So you're really going to create messaging that kind of resonates with them and it gets their interest up and at some point gets some activity. So when we're putting together these email campaigns, Rebekah, kind of explain your methodology, how you create copy, how you talk to the audience, and how you kind of storytell to get them to move.
Sure. So storytelling and narrative is key with these. That was the first thing I was going to hit on too, Lee. We're wanting to take people through a process. So when they start reading these emails, one, we want to hook them from the very first email because we want them to continue reading the rest of the series, right? So we're going to start telling them a story saying, hey, if you're experiencing this, if you're dealing with this particular problem, here's how we can help. Here's a guide for how we can help you solve it. Here's a white paper about, this particular issue. You're going to want to have some reason that these people want to continue reading through the rest of the series. End it with some type of a hook or something that's going to be like, hey, next time we're going to discuss A, B, C, and D, or next time stay tuned to learn how to combat insert pain point here, that type of thing. So I think a lot about how to create a cohesive narrative because you don't want each of these to just be its own sort of standalone thing that anyone could write. You want this to be a narrative series that's taking people on a journey, if you will. And by the end of it, they're going to be effectively sold on your services. Our campaigns contain 7 emails. You can pick and choose how many of those you want to use. Like Lee said, we recommend no fewer than 3. 3 is what really kind of starts to build that campaign atmosphere where people really start to get interested. They want to dig into what you have to say. So I just think a lot about what kind of narrative we're telling if we're addressing the pain points, and then also what CTAs we're actually using. CTAs, for those unfamiliar, are calls to action. That is actually asking people to do something, to take some sort of action based on an email, based on a landing page, whatever it may be that you're sending them. So in this case, we want to think through, do you want them to set a discovery call? Do you want them to book some type of a demo with you to see what you can do? Do you want them to, pay online for a service that they've already signed up for? There are a lot of different types of CTAs. So that's kind of the short version of how we think through an upsell campaign and these drip emails.
Yeah, and I would like to add two of the most we talked about, or Rebekah just mentioned, the calls to action. You'd be shocked how the call to action, how important it is for the conversion rates. So just even the words, the way the buttons are created, having too many CTAs can often be a negative. The other biggest pulls here are, what is your subject line? And then what does your email preview text look like? So if you think about when you get an email, you'll see the subject, but often you can see like the beginning of the email in the preview pane. That is a make or break of whether or not people open it. The other thing is we talk about doing educational things. So free white papers, reports, any sort of, let's say, a tax saving guide for gig economy workers. Now that's exactly what I'm getting. Oh, tax savings for me. I'm a gig worker. I might be more interested in opening that up versus trying to be one topic tax saving guide without doing it kind of targeted to people. So that's why we think it's so important. You can also send them to a content cluster if you've created that on your blog already. A content cluster, real quick, Rebekah, what is it and why is it effective?
Yep, content clusters are basically groups of articles that relate back to a core topic. So could be top 10 small business tax planning tips you need for 2025. That would be an example. You would write a larger guide that listed all 10 of those tax tips, post it to your blog, and then you're going to break each of those tax tips down into a shorter article that's maybe 400 to 600 words, and you're going to link back to that core piece of content in every one of those articles. That's going to help establish you as an authority with Google, with various other search algorithms, for someone who knows how small businesses can save money on their taxes during that year or in general.
All right, very good. So I think we've hit up kind of what a campaign should look like. I think this is probably the most important part other than delivering the service. So let's talk about step 4 is utilizing AI to make you more efficient. So one of the biggest issues most tax and accounting pros are facing today, they have more clients than they can deal with, more work than they can deal with. They can't get everything done. Tax planning traditionally has been done by sophisticated, expensive tax planning software that's programmed, inputs in, and then the export out of data. That works, but it doesn't really hyper personalize any of your tax plan reports, right? So what we have found and what we have developed are AI agents that basically do that, where you can have every single client can have a personalized tax plan just for them. It takes into effect their profession. It takes into effect their age, for example, perhaps where they live. There's a lot of different things, and it can hyper-personalize the output. The way our AI agents work, we have an email campaign that goes out. a client decides, hey, I'm interested in this tax plan. They subscribe, let's say they purchase it, click a button, put their credit card in. They then would get an automatic trigger that would be an intake form. We use these intake forms to help gather the personal information. Usually we have the ability to upload a tax return or tax returns. That will pull and extract even more data to make this tax plan even more personalized to them specifically. From there, our AI agent will create a tax plan. So we basically have a tax plan report that's generated, and then we go into what we call the human in the loop review and delivery. So our professionals then can review, what does the report look like? What are the suggestions? What is AI saying? Do I agree with everything? Do I want to add to it? You have the ability then to do some editing and then click a button to export a professional branded PDF report that then you could schedule an appointment and go over it with them or release it to them via email or through your client portal. This approach allows you to serve many more clients than you ever could before, right? And you're so think of AI agents at this point as like hiring multiple assistants or clones of you. They're doing 95% of the work, highly accurate. They know the tax code. They know all the different tax planning strategies. They may find things that you never would have thought of. And then you can humanize it on your side. So that's the best of both worlds. It is a way now to scale tax advisory services like never before. So definitely look at step 4, whether you're using traditional tax software still, that's fine, but I think it's time to start experimenting with more scalable solutions and more importantly, more personalized solutions. So I think the future is going to be these AI agents to do these tax planning reports versus the traditional way. So I'm moving into step 5, which is follow up and close. So after launching the campaign and engaging your clients, the final step is obviously effective follow-up. So, and let's talk about how marketing really works. So, people might know they have a pain point, and they may even know, hey, this might be worth my time, but they're just too lazy to do it. So, what takes a client to the intent level, and what is the human, like what kind of signals do you need to start, massaging them to a close? So kind of, Rebekah, give a little insight on that.
So using the upsell campaigns is one good way to do it because you're constantly staying at the top of their inbox over a period of days or weeks, depending on the cadence you decide on. That can kind of be the nudge that some people need. If they're just seeing repeatedly, hey, here's what we can do for you. Here's what we can do for you. In some cases, you may need to get on the phone, right? Some people need that extra personal touch. They need to hear from a person. So if you send out the whole campaign, you notice that you haven't had a great response to it, you're thinking, hey, I know so-and-so of your existing clients would be a great candidate for this. Get on the phone, call them, set a meeting, set a lunch, that type of thing. Give that personal one-on-one interaction where you can really dive into their situation and show them exactly how you can help them. So marketing is about psychology. So the more you appeal to these people, the more you make them think that they can no longer manage their taxes without your services, the more likely they are to bite. And these people are your current clients, right? We're talking about upselling existing clients. So they already know what you can do. They already trust you. So just kind of getting them over that next little hill to realize that you can provide a lot more value than you already are. And sometimes that just requires a little bit of a personal touch and a little bit of a push in the right direction.
Yeah, and then tools like the online proposals make it easy to follow up with you with a call. Make it easy for them to set an appointment on your calendar for a discovery call. Make it very clear what the next steps are. That will all improve your conversion rate. So I think that's really important. So we're kind of wrapping this up. I think we've gone through the 5 steps. I think the most important one is segmentation. Once you have segmentation down, you back it up with highly targeted outreach. So very targeted, meaning the messaging you're sending is not one for all clients. It's focused on each group of client. And then from there, using tools like AI agents that CountyWorks Pro has or other tools out there to do highly personalized at scale tax reports and tax planning reports. And I think the game changer here is just how AI enables you to scale these things without significant workload. So what used to take you hours per client, like gathering the client data, researching the tax strategies, drafting tax plans, can now be done in a fraction of time with AI. You're still the human in the loop. We are not trying to say you shouldn't be involved in this discussion. that's the whole point. You have the human expertise, the experience to now kind of review. These are the options. This is option A. I wouldn't maybe go here, but you can do this and the reasons why. So I think this is really important. And it's a really large opportunity. There are millions and millions, tens of millions of people. I think some of the stats we've looked is like 60 million plus taxpayers today that should be doing proactive tax planning. Their returns are complex enough that from home office deductions, Airbnbs, whatever they're doing, there's so many different opportunities for these people to save money that if you're saving people tens and 20s and 30s, $100,000, they will gladly pay you $10,000 for that, $20,000 for that. If they're selling a business and you're saving them millions and millions of dollars in taxes with QSBS stock, guess what? You've obviously more than paid for your fees. So definitely something to look at. I recommend all of our clients look at tax advisory, packaging specifically, getting out of the old way of the hourly, I'm billed by my hour, because then you're just limiting your income. You're just one person. There's just so many hours in the day. And with a scalable solution like we're doing, the hourly rate is not really what you're concerned about. It's like, how much volume can I put through at high quality? So definitely look at this. I hope this is another valuable kind of podcast and insight. We are putting this content up in a blog article on accountingworkspro.com. So you could definitely go check that out. We'll add this podcast video as well. So you can look at the takeaways for, I think the most important part is kind of determining who the clients to offer. So the occupation-based, financial situation, and the life event. Again, thank you for joining us on our podcast. We're looking forward to seeing you in another episode soon. Rebekah, any final thoughts?
I think we've hit on everything. I'll see you guys again soon.
All right. Thank you.